Organizers of the protest call for the expansion of the current abortion law to be made available to every woman, especially those who are socio-economically challenged, adding that reproductive justice can only be achieved once all women in the country have access to the economical, political, and social resources to make decisions about their own body and sexuality.
When we look at also other areas in which women's reproductive justice is not fully accessible, we can also start looking at really how many women or young girls don't have access to sanitary pads, and that is also a very pressing issue. So all of these speak to one another. All of this really center really the outlook, the holistic social well-being or well-being of women's health and women and young girls. So reproductive justice is really at the core of this conversation. Abortion rights are just low-hanging fruits of the total reproductive justice that can be achieved. As Hildegard had mentioned, that we're looking at abortion laws, the law so that it can be expanded or repealed, just amended so that we make sure that everyone has access to this specific law, and it will be legal whether or not you will access this specific law, as long as it is legal, so that more women can have options to make choices about their lives in order for them to have the right to self-determine where they might want to decide whether they'd like to decide to parent a child or to raise a child or to have a child. So we are looking at abortion laws within this reproductive justice. We are looking at really access to contraceptives, comprehensive sexuality education. We are looking at all other areas that really can inform young girls and women and everyone really outside of the being of women to be able to make informed decisions, to have the information.
Another organizer of the Reproductive Justice March says the current abortion law is very restrictive with regard to gender justice, adding that the legalization of abortion would not be used as another form of contraceptives, but however to improve women's lives considering factors involved in childbearing.
Abortion is actually legal in Namibia, but only under very restrictive circumstances. One of them being in cases of rape, the other being instances of incest, and the other being with medical complications for the person who's pregnant. This kind of ties into a bigger issue around gender justice in Namibia as well, because we all know how long it is or how long it takes to actually report a rape in this country, for the rape to actually be convicted, and the rapist to be convicted, and for them to actually have a court date, with all that stuff. So for example, if someone got raped, by the time that your rapist is convicted, you might have already given birth. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it kind of puts you in a very precarious situation. Even in cases where if someone has to have a medical abortion, you need to get letters from 2 physicians and 2 magistrates to actually go forth with the medical abortion. And even in that case, there's still people who aren't given one. So sometimes people have to go to South Africa just to have an abortion. People assume that once abortion is legalized, we're all going to run to abortion clinics every day just to have an abortion, and that's not the case. Abortion is just an extension of, reproductive health care, and also ensuring that, we have access to contraception. We also have access to, improving lives of women, because ultimately the reason a lot of women tend to have abortions as well, not all cases, but we also have to, and we cannot ignore the fact about the economic factors of having children and how our society treats, women when they're having children outside of wedlock, or, the financial implications of raising a child. Because again, a man can, escape the responsibilities of childhood, but a woman cannot. And not to say that having an abortion is to escape responsibilities, but ultimately women tend to have the burden of emotional, physical, and financial burdens of child rearing. A lot of people who are anti-choice like to talk about, we can take them to adoption centers or orphanages or the foster care system, but we already know that the foster care system and the adoption system in Namibia is failing a lot of children. And again, this is something that once this law is legalized, will also kind of try and strengthen those things about understanding that it's not a one solution issue. Yes, contraception needs to be more accessible. We also need to talk about sexual and reproductive rights, and also education in our schools.
Pastor Goro, who is pro-life, however, believes that the debate is irrelevant at this point in time, saying that government should be preoccupied with pressing issues, further encouraging foster care and adoption.
This is the wrong time to come up with something about abortion. How many of our young ladies are really struggling from this? Very few. The percentage is less than 0.1. But we have our population, people are unemployed, there's poverty, there's crime, gender-based violence. If these are the things that legislation is going to be, they're making a legislation on those bases, how to provide jobs, youth unemployment, and also how do we deal with the challenge of drug abuse among our young people. We will support it. So as churches, we are saying, give us the opportunity to take care of these young ladies that are being abused by men. Because as a man, I know many of these young people are taken advantage of by other men, and then get them pregnant and they don't want to take responsibility.
The petition launched by Beauty Boys on the 11th of June, which has sparked the conversation with 70,000 signatures in support of the legalization of abortion to date, has been submitted to the National Assembly, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare, and the Ministry of Health and Social Services.